Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. It is Monday, August 23rd. I actually forgot what day it is, my daily financial news, so I apologize. It happens. I say every day is Saturday. I actually have no idea what day it is unless I know who I'm talking to. It's kind of cool, actually. I got to admit. But Greg, how you doing this morning?
Doing great, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. So one thing I knew I wanted to talk to you about today was something I reported on. I think it was Wednesday or Thursday of last week. So I'll give you the headline. I'm not sure if you saw it, but Palantir, a pretty well-known software company, decided to go out and buy just over $50 million in gold bars. I did the math. They have at least 250 100-ounce gold bars, those things you see on TV. I want to know, is that the sign of the apocalypse? Is the dollar just going to disappear because Palantir bought 250, gold bars?
No, I don't think the dollar is going anywhere. I mean, it's down here today, I think, but it's up and down, and it's really interesting. It's all tied to what the Fed's going to do. So last week, the messaging was the Fed is going to come out with monetary policy changes and start pulling back on their bond purchase and their mortgage-backed security purchases. So the market started tapering off a little bit. Everybody was, starting to look at gold. The gold's been down a little bit, so it's a good time to buy some gold, put it on the balance sheet. A lot of people are speculating that gold is going to double in price, as we get into, pullback from the Fed. This week and over the weekend, reports are out that the economy is not doing so great. Delta is a problem. So the Fed now is saying that they're not going to start tapering. So what happens? Markets are up. Gold is selling off a little bit. So, it's really silly how that reaction is so severe, because the other conversation is the Fed thinks that they can taper without a tantrum. And I think what they saw last week that there's no easy way out of this.
Yeah, I mean, they've done this, and they will attempt to do better than 2014, right? The taper tantrum, which both you and I saw up close and personal. But it's going to happen, right? People have hundreds of billions of dollars positioned one way that need to unwind quickly once that starts. So, are they trying to avoid the worst of it? Sure, but they can't. I mean, there's hundreds of billions of dollars that need to be rejiggered once they start tapering. Don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the big message that you saw and you're seeing with people putting gold on their balance sheet is, the markets are just too frothy, all of them. And there's really no safe bet against the overvaluation of all assets across all markets and all classes. So gold is seen as a hedge against that. It's a hedge against the melt up trade. Right. And there was a big dip in gold, last week when they jumped in. So it made sense.
Yeah. When I looked at this, so again, I talked about it on one of my daily financial news, and the amount of the world is ending comments I got was, I'll say it was frightening. It was like, wow, do people really believe this? So of course I'm a data junkie. I'm like, well, okay, let's go figure this out. So
are you talking economically or period?
Yeah, well, I'm going to guess economically. Like the dollar's going to end, the reserve currency's over. It's imminent. It's going to happen tomorrow. I'm like, man, this stuff doesn't move that fast, people. But anyways, I wanted to go do some research. So I went up and actually pulled up Palantir's balance sheet. Like, hey, right, 50 million bucks, gold bars, right? I've in 30 years of reading statements, I've never seen that. But yeah, there it is. And so I went back to 2019, Greg. They had $1 billion in cash. 12 months later, they had $2.1 billion in cash. Palantir has a cash problem. Their cash balances are growing faster than they need. This is a company going, what can I do, right? Historically speaking, what did companies do? They bought stock, right? Stock buybacks. I think you're right. I think there's the melt up trade, and companies know that buying stock at the peak is a bad use of capital. You have acquisitions. There's actually a fair amount of acquisitions going on today for cash. I think we have a cash problem. And again, $50 million sounds like a lot to you and me, but it's less than 2% of their cash balances. So it's not some super secret sign that Palantir has an inside track with the government and they're going to get out ahead of this, because if they did, they wouldn't be buying 2%. They'd be buying 20 or 30%.
Yeah, they're just spreading it out, spreading the risk out. And, gold is largely seen as a risk off trade. It's been a little up and down, but it's been steadily up for the last, number of years. I mean, when you look at the gold chart, it's been pretty much steady uphill, for the last 10 years or so. It's been a little volatile here this year, but everything has. And again, it's risk on. The trade is risk on. The Fed's pushing everybody into risk assets. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Michael Burry came out and he is shorting treasuries.
Yeah.
He's betting against treasuries and saying that they're going to go up. So it's actually not really a short, but he's betting that they're going to go up and that they're going to rise. So I guess you could say he's shorting the economy, at large, is what he's doing. So, when risk is off, where do you go? You go into bonds, you go into gold, you go into those assets. A lot of companies, some companies, not a lot, but a few companies have put a little Bitcoin on their balance sheet, seeing that as a hedge against inflation, as a risk off trade. But Bitcoin is a risk on asset big time, and it's going to follow the markets just like it did last week when we had taper talk. Bitcoin dipped a little bit. This week, markets are up. Taper talk is off the table. Bitcoin's up. So,
Yeah, I saw Bitcoin over 50K. I think it was yesterday, or I think it was this morning. I saw it was over 50,000. So pretty interesting stuff. And again, what I think we're seeing right now is just the fact that there's so much cash in the system. I think there's a general understanding we are at the tail end of this cycle, and there is going to be an adjustment. And there's just a lot of people. I mean, there's so much cash. I mean, I think I saw $1 trillion in the overnight lending market, reverse repo market. So much cash. People know that putting it to work in a frothy market is not the best use of it. So a lot of people are just sitting in cash, waiting for the adjustment. That's what I think is happening.
Yeah. And we're not at the end of the market until the Fed says we are, and it's really interesting because the only reason we are where we are is because of the liquidity pumped into the economy and interest rates. That's it. It's the only two reasons that assets are where they are across the board, all values, every single one of them.
Yeah.
Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, real estate, stock markets, gold, because there's been a lot of capital poured into that. And, all you got to do is follow the money. It's money flow. If you take the liquidity off the table that the Fed has pumped in the market over the last 10 years, we would be probably about half of where we are across the board in all asset classes. So when they do stop, you got to kind of get back there. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen, but I think you'll probably see values drop 20 to 30% across the board in all asset classes.
Yeah. We're going to talk about that in episode number 2, specifically about cash balances, because they are higher than I've ever seen. There's more cash in the system today. And I think that tells us something. So we're going to talk about that next. But before we do, Greg, how can people follow you and be part of your awesome YouTube channel?
GregDickerson.com. All my information's there. YouTube, podcast, everything. GregDickerson.com.
And Greg talks about a lot of stuff that I am not qualified to talk about, entrepreneurship and all of those wonderful things, which we're going to hit on in episode number 3 today. Greg, thank you very much.
Yeah.